Now going to question 13, we'll start with the prompt like always. We're looking to logically complete the text. Now, the questions that ask us to complete the text, that's kind of a predictive thing to say, okay, what must come next? But if you summarize the text, one answer will usually match that summary. So let's go ahead and try that. This civilization, from which the present day tribes descended, emerged as early as that year in an area of what is now part of the United States and dispersed suddenly in this year, abandoning established villages with systems for farming crops and turkeys. Recent analysis comparing turkey remains there in one such village in that area to samples from modern turkey populations in a different area determined that the latter birds descended in part from turkeys cultivated at this area, with shared genetic markers appearing only after a certain year. Thus, the researchers concluded that. So, we're hearing that turkeys from this civilization, from the remains that were found at the area of that ancient civilization, were compared to samples from modern turkey populations, and it turns out that the modern ones descended in part from the turkeys cultivated in that ancient civilization because they had the shared genetic markers. Thus, researchers concluded that what we're seeing is that the turkeys that were used by the ancient civilization seem to have been passed on to the modern civilization because one descended from the other. So there's some relationship between the type of turkey that was being used in these ancient times and the one used in the modern times. So let's start reading the answer choices. Answer choice A says conditions of the terrains in the two areas had greater similarities in the past than they do today. We're not really considering the terrains here. This paragraph is more about the turkey remains. B. Some of the ancient people migrated to the Rio Grande Valley in the late 1200s and carried their farming practices with them. That makes a lot of sense if the turkeys in the new area are descendants from the turkeys in the old area. So we'll at least save that one for later. C. Indigenous peoples living in the Rio Grande Valley primarily planted crops and did not cultivate turkeys before 1280. The problem with that one is that in the Rio Grande Valley, which is the newer modern area in this paragraph, we're not investigating the remains. We're just investigating, it says, modern turkey population. So we're not going to get anything about indigenous people in the Rio Grande Valley the way the study was done. Answer choice D. The ancestral Pueblans of Mesa Verde likely adopted the farming practices of indigenous people living in other regions. Well, the ancestral Pueblans of Mesa Verde, they're the ones who brought their farming practices over to the Rio Grande area. And so, whether or not they adopted the farming practices of people from other regions is not at all being explored here. This is a question of whether the Mesa Verde people carried their farming practices over to the Rio Grande. So, answer choice D here is a little off topic, and the one remaining is B.